Hold up, I am on my way, I'm in motion. Let's go to the ocean. Yeah, let's go outside. We can hang out on the beach without freezing.
Welcome to Crafty Beach. This is Julie. Today I have 22 Beach Dollar Tree DIYs for you that I have made so far in 2025 on my channel. I have a little bit of everything in today's video and I hope you enjoy this coastal crafting marathon. This is a DIY you guys have been asking me to do for a while and I finally figured out a way. We're going to DIY coral. I'm going to use one of these little foam pieces from the Dollar Tree. At first, I thought I was going to have to weigh it down with one of those wood discs at the bottom, but it ended up being heavy enough on its own to not need that. Now for the coral itself, I'm going to use the Dollar Tree wood dowels. These are a little thicker. I want to bake a larger coral. If you wanted to make a smaller one, I guess you could use some of the skinnier ones as well. Now for the little polyps on the coral arms, we're going to use just newspaper because they can't be super straight like that. I just took a newspaper and ripped it up into little pieces and wadded those up to give us a little paper backing for these. I'm going to have 5 branches on my coral. You could always make yours as big or as little as you want, but I think that'll be the right size for that disc. I do want the end to be a little bit bulbous, so I'm going to start there. And I'm going to cover everything with masking tape. So I put the newspaper on there, kind of like a bumpy shape there at the end, and make sure that all of my paper is covered with masking tape. That's going to help protect the paper a little bit when we go to put this all together. I wanted to make coral with just using supplies from the Dollar Tree. Everything is going to be from the Dollar Tree except for the school glue, but you could always buy that there. I just find it cheaper at Target for their back to school sales. So I want another branch here. I want them to branch out like coral do on each side a little bit randomly. And so I just choose different sizes of the newspaper that I've wadded up. I tape to the dowel and then I go around the newspaper like that. And I don't want my pieces too long because they tended to get a little bit stuck on themselves, but as long as I could do without starting a new piece. And these are pretty long dowels. I'm just going ahead and leaving them long like that until I figure out exactly how tall I want it to be. This is going to be my centerpiece, which is going to be the longest. I'm just going to cut my dowels with my miter scissors. I got those on Amazon and I love those for cutting dowels. I think that one looks pretty good. We can start on our second branch. I don't want them to be necessarily symmetrical, but I do want them all to have like bulbous ends here at the end, like coral looks. And there's so many different kinds of coral. This is kind of a thicker coral inspiration that I was going for this one, which is why I use the larger dowels and the larger like little pieces of newspaper, but you can make this as intricate as you want. I've seen people make coral using wire, but I could not really find any good sources of wire from Dollar Tree that's thick enough, that would be strong enough to hold this up. But if you're doing a more delicate coral, I think wire might work well. I thought that the wood dowels would just make this whole thing stronger. So I think they're going to make good branches. And the fact that we can add the newspaper like this makes them have more of that coral look. So I want this one to be a little bit shorter than the middle piece. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that one down as well. And then I'm going to do a third one that is about the same length as that one. So again, just newspaper, just random small pieces. I wad it up and I start at the top. This was a little bit time consuming to put together, but I absolutely love how it turned out. I know you guys have been asking me for a way to make your own coral, and I'm so glad I figured out a way. I was trying to determine a way to make it with supplies from the Dollar Tree. Like a lot of them call for joint compound, different things that Dollar Tree doesn't have. But I used baking soda grout for a Easter egg mosaic that turned out wonderfully. So it gave me the idea to try to make this coral with baking soda and glue. And I love how it turned out. So that is my second branch that I want to be kind of a medium length. Now for the final two, I want 2 smaller branches for the front so they don't block everything. So I'm just going to use my leftover pieces of dowel from those 2 pieces and do 2 more. These are going to be shorter little branches right here in front, but the process is the same. I do want them to have the little bumpy end. I find it a little bit easier to work with these before cutting them down. These are some of the shorter ones, so I don't really have that extra length, but I am leaving a couple of inches there at the bottom on my dowels, completely without any shapes down there, so that I can put that down into the foam. And I thought that this was going to be a little top heavy with the coral up top, but since I cover the base with coral material too, it was plenty heavy enough, so I didn't even need to use the base that I prepared for it. So this is the last little branch of coral, and then I'm going to show you how I'm going to make this look like coral. This turned out so cool. It's actually dry now, but I haven't went to the steps of sealing it yet because I want it to be really dry before I seal it, because I want this to be able to last. This made a pretty large piece of coral. If I were to buy this, this would probably be a lot of money. And, you know, most of the coral that you buy in the store is faux coral anyway. And now the fun part to make them look like coral. We're going to start with baking soda and glue. They're going to be a 1-to-1 ratio. I'm going to double it up, so 2-to-2 of baking soda and school glue. I ended up not quite having enough, so you're going to want to do 3-to-3, if that makes sense, because I did have to make more here to cover that base. I didn't really think about that, but I wasn't really sure how much of this I would need. Now, this isn't the only step in this, like, paper mache process. This is going to be a lot of the doughy material that we make to cover them, but we need something a little bit stronger to bond it all together. And instead of using like a newspaper with paper mache, we're going to be using toilet paper. So the first thing I did was just mix it up a little bit for the baking soda to start dissolving in the glue, and time for toilet paper. Now I had like a 2-ply toilet paper, you know, probably the cheaper the better on this. I just stole a roll, and I am just tearing that. I ripped it into individual layers and then ripped it in half and then ripped it into little bitty pieces and added that. So the ratio is 1 part baking soda, 1 part school glue, and then 1 to 2 parts of toilet paper. I added probably 2 parts of toilet paper. I didn't really measure it. I just added it, stirred it up, saw the consistency of it to see if I liked it. And you are probably going to need to add a little bit of water if it gets too thick. So I do have a little bit of water standing by, but right now I'm just adding a little bit more toilet paper. Now, I was worried my toilet paper had like a pattern on it, but the toilet paper fibers are so short, it dissolved right away in this to make like a paper pulp. I added a little bit of water because it was a little too thick. I think I added a little bit too much water. I did have to thicken it up here in a little bit. But we're going to start with our largest branch of coral first. And I'm just grabbing it and shaping it onto the coral. That's when I noticed it probably could be a little bit thicker. So to do that, I just added a little bit more baking soda to it to see if that made a difference. And it was a little bit thicker, but I think it could be even more thicker. You're going to want it like almost like a Play-Doh consistency, I think, for it to really keep its shape. So I added a tiny bit more baking soda to mine. I probably shouldn't have added so much water, and that was the perfect consistency. So again, I want to cover all of the little branches of the coral. I want to try to cover up all of the masking tape and all of the wood dowel if I can. And the bumpier, the better on this. We are going to texturize this to make it look more like coral, but I think that will work. This is going to be the middle piece. I'm going to put this one right in the middle. I went ahead and tried it out for size. I think that's going to work right there in the middle of the foam piece. And we're going to keep building. So I just grab another branch of coral and just start shaping that around. I was really impressed with how well this held up. It did take several hours, probably overnight, for it to dry completely. Today it is dry, but I don't know if it's really dry on the inside yet, which is why I haven't sealed mine yet. So there's our second branch, and we're just going to keep building. I found that like the very ends of the wood dowels, I tried to make sure that you couldn't see that coming through, and I tried really hard to make sure that you couldn't see any of the tape, because in the end I don't want any of that masking tape peeking out of the coral. And I think that looks pretty good. We have 2 more branches, and these are our smaller ones here in front. I want this to look like a branching coral, so it's gonna have a coral base as well, which is what is gonna be the little green foam piece. Now, I decided to leave mine white to kind of look a little bit like a bleached coral, but I think that you could paint this. I'll show you how I texturize it. I might make some changes to mine if I were going to paint this. My husband thought I should paint it, but I really liked it white, and I have like a light blue and white theme in my house, and I have a lot of blue coral, and I don't really have any white. Okay, now it's time to texturize it. I'm going to do that with white sand from the Dollar Tree. I chose white sand because I want my coral to be white. That way I won't have to paint anything. And then I'm also going to texturize it with an old toothbrush. That gives it that little prickly texture on there. I think the sand ended up giving mine more texture than this. But if you were going to paint yours, I would use less sand because that's going to be a little bit harder to paint, I think. I'm not sure. I haven't sealed mine yet, but I think that mine has a lot of texture because of the sand, because I did add a lot of sand to it, but texturing it with the toothbrush worked well too. And that might have helped push the sand down into the wet, I don't know what to call this, like paper mache. And I do the same thing here for the second one, just sprinkling white sand all over and texturizing it all over to look super bumpy like coral. So this is my second piece. I'm going to go ahead and use a screwdriver to poke some holes in here. It was about the same size as my wood dowel, and adding a little hot glue into the hole first to make sure that the branches stay in place and they are good and sturdy. When I did push them in there, I did make sure to repair any damage I did to the end. Pushing it down, I don't want that dowel poking out at all. So I did the largest one in the middle, one of the medium ones in the back. This is the other medium one that I texturized with sand, and I'm going to put that in the back as well. And we can do the 2 shorter ones in the front. So again, I just poke a hole in the foam, put some hot glue in there, and add our coral branch. You can make them go out whatever direction you think is going to look good. And the great thing about this project is that it's so customizable. You can really make your coral look however you want. And I have a lot of coral in my house that I've purchased, all different kinds. I think this is going to be a great addition, and it was so much fun to DIY it myself. So this is one of the shorter branches. I'm going to have it kind of go off to the side a little bit like that. I think that makes more sense. But I do want you to be able to see everything. While it's still wet like this, you can still kind of mold it a little bit if you need to. And then this is the last piece of coral. Now, right now you can see the wood dowels at the bottom a little bit, and you can see all that green foam, but we're going to cover all of that with the paper mache too. So last piece is going to be right here in front. And this is where I didn't have enough of the paper mache. And who knew you could make something so beautiful out of toilet paper and glue and baking soda, right? This is how much I have left, which is not going to be enough, but I can start filling in the top of the foam there in between the pieces to make it look like it's all one piece of coral. And then I'm just going to have to mix up a little bit more. I guess it's good to have too little than too much, I guess. I didn't have to waste any materials. So I did another 1-to-1 of the baking soda to school glue, and then added, of course, more of the toilet paper. I think the toilet paper is a really important part for this, for stability, to help hold everything together with those paper fibers. And I like the fact that I can just leave mine snowy white like this, and I didn't have to paint it. So that looks pretty good. I added a tiny bit of water to mine, maybe a little bit more baking soda. You're just kind of working with it to get it the right consistency. And then I just start grabbing pieces of that, working that around the foam base. I really like it without a base on it. Like I was going to do a wood base or an acrylic base there at the bottom, but I really like it just on its own like this. So what we're going to do is now add the sand and texturize what we just added. So I just sprinkle sand in between while it's still wet. and sand all around the edges. And then I'll go in there with my toothbrush as well to help texturize it. The toothbrush was definitely a time saver because you could really get a lot of little holes poked in it at the same time without having to kind of poke it over and over again with a skewer or something like that. So I just built up mine a little bit more here with my extra paper mache that I had. Anywhere that I thought you might be able to see a little bit of the masking tape or the dowel coming through, or if I just wanted an extra area. But it is completely done. I'm going to set it aside and let it dry. It is partially set up here enough where I was like, oh, this is heavy. This does not need a base at all. But look at that really cool texture on there. Now I do want to go back with a sealer to make sure all of my sand stays in place. And I think that you could probably paint it after maybe you sealed it. I'm going to do a little research to see if the baking soda and the sealer will work well together. But look at that great texture on my faux coral. I love it. This was a really exciting new crafting technique that I wanted to try out for you guys, and I think it was a success. What do you guys think? If you're enjoying today's video so far, be sure to hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. For the next DIY, I picked up this basketball hoop Easter basket at Dollar Tree. When I saw it, I saw, ooh, that kind of looks like a fishing net. We're having to be really creative now with Dollar Tree, right? So I am going to try to make it look like a fishing net basket and something that we can display some fun beach finds in. I do want it to be like a brown net, like a brown fishing net. So I just went in with some khaki spray paint that I had on hand, and I went ahead and painted the inside of it first. I thought spray paint would be definitely the fastest way to get inside the basket as well. Now you could probably do this with one of the metal trash cans from the Dollar Tree too, but I liked the shape of the netting on the basketball net because I thought it reminded me of a fishing net, right? So I painted it with khaki like this, and then I'm gonna go in and distress it with a little bit of ivory, just using a chunky brush from the Dollar Tree, dragging that ivory over, using a dry paper towel to wipe off any excess, just to give it an aged look. And I don't really care too much what the top looks like there. I didn't make sure to get that an even color of khaki up there because I am going to use some rope up there to add a lot of texture and interest to that and to kind of disguise the little plastic pieces that are sticking out of the side. I'm not going to do a handle for this. You could if you wanted. You could paint the original handle if you wanted that. But I wanted it to look like maybe an old type vintage fishnet basket is what I was going for. And so I wanted it to be like a brownish color like this. Now for the top, I'm just going to use Dollar Tree rope. This is their thinner rope. And I'm just going to wrap this around to give it a lot of texture and fun here and to cover up the top of this. So I start right here underneath the rim of the fishing net basket, and I'm gluing that to the bottom edge. I thought that the thinner rope would be best for this because I can kind of work it around what's going on here at the top already. When I get to the end, I had started where one of the little plastic tabs sticks out. I'm going to keep going and hot glue that around. It is thin, so it covers about half of the rim there. And just kind of working my way around the little bump outs there instead of cutting them off. And I just go all the way around like that. Now for the top half, I go above it like this, right? And I'm going to glue it again. This is going to finish covering the entire top of that rim. And I'm just doing this because I think it looks better than the plastic. It's going to add more texture and fun to this. And then for the very top, I'm going to continue that same piece of rope. There was plenty here in one package, and just go over the very top with another row of the rope. I just cut it off to start and stop right there where it makes sense. And then I'm just going to use a lighter to go around our basket and burn off any of the fuzzies. Now, I didn't like that you could still see inside the basket a little bit there with the rim, and I didn't want to continue rope. So I decided to add a little bit of burlap to mine, but you could continue the rope with another package. I just wanted to kind of give another fun texture to the inside of this and to make it look like it's lined a little bit there with burlap. So I took some of the burlap roll from the Dollar Tree. It's way too thick, so I'm going to cut it down into a smaller piece without any finished edges, just a little strip of burlap ribbon to go around the inside of the basket to seal that up. Now I'm going to add all kinds of fun beach treasures, the larger stuff that a little bit harder to display in this basket. And I love how it turned out. So I'm just attaching my burlap there with hot glue, and it's not very thick, just probably like 1.5 inches of the burlap, and just go all the way around until that part is covered, and just made it look a little bit more finished. There was a slight gap between the burlap and the rope, so then I just went around with some more hot glue and glued them to each other to seal it all up to look like the top of a basket. I think that looks pretty cool. Just making sure I don't have any strings of hot glue anywhere, and this is ready to decorate. Now, I've been having trouble finding Spanish moss at Dollar Tree. Have you guys been having trouble finding it there as well? So I had to go to Walmart to buy some more Spanish moss. And so this is going to need a lot. So I'm going to use this larger package that I got there. It's pretty inexpensive. I fill that up to the basket, and then I'm going to add some of the Dollar Tree onion grass. This is a pretty big bundle. It's a little too tall, so I'm going to use my wire cutters to cut it down a little bit so it doesn't stick out too much. And I'm going to have to cut off a couple of these little pieces of grass that are kind of broken because it just kind of takes away from the effect. And just trying to space it out, making sure everything is down. And we're going to put this here towards the back. It's going to be a nice tall piece in our little beach bucket. Now, adding to that, I was trying to find things from the Dollar Tree that reminded me of the beach, and this is the new pampas grass they have. You only get 2 of them for $1.25, but aren't they so pretty? I don't know if they're traditionally like coastal at all, but I think they go well with coastal. So you know what? I'm going to shorten them a little bit and add them to my onion grass. I really like the color of them. And then finds from the beach, I'm going to go through my driftwood collection and see what I can display. Why have all this cool driftwood if I'm not going to display it, right? So I do a larger piece here in the back. And then we're going to add some smaller pieces. I tried to choose a lot of variety in my driftwood. I have a stash of it out in my Florida room that I went through. And this one's really cool. It's got like little barnacles on it. So cool. Ocean treasures for sure. And those are my larger pieces. And then here in the front is going to be some smaller things. So I'm going to add a little bit of the Spanish moss there to help boost things up. And then we're going to fill it up with seashells. I have a ton of seashells from the last time I went to Sanibel. And I'm just going to just pile those in there. I want variety. I don't want anything real colorful. I want to kind of stick with the whites and the tans and the browns. And I also have a starfish. I have no idea where I got that. It looks like a real one. And I just displayed that right on top. So let me give you a look of how our little fishing net basket turned out. I think it's so pretty. And who would know that was like a basketball hoop Easter basket from the Dollar Tree? Isn't that so fun? And anytime I can display some of my massive beach finds, I am happy with that. I think it turned out really cute. Now for the next DIY, we're going to design a beach house. I'm ready to move into this, I think. I took a Dollar Tree wood sign, just a plain rectangular sign, 2 of the chunky wood house frames to start making our house. And we're going to actually make a house. I picked up 2 of the wall shelves like this, the shorter ones, so that we can make this project without any cutting. These are going to be the sides of the house. They're a little bit rougher, so I just gave them a quick sand. And then we're going to use some of the wood planks from the Dollar Tree, the rectangular ones. I think these are going to make a good roof. I'm probably going to have to combine a couple together, so let's do a total of 4 of those. And I wanted to see if we could make a beach house. Now, this is going to be the side of the house like this. It's about the right height, which is why I chose this. And I'm just going to attach it with hot glue. So I just laid these on their side, put hot glue on the side of them, and attached to the side of the house. It does have holes in there that I will have to fill up with a little bit of spackle. I do forget, but I do go back and do that. I did want to sand them down though, so they were nice and smooth. And then I'm going to flip it over and do the same thing here, hot gluing on the other side of the house. Now this beach house is not going to be up on stakes. I have done that before with the plastic doll houses for a Halloween DIY video, but most of our beach houses here in Vero Beach are not up on stakes, so we're just going to do a kind of traditional house on the ground. But I wanted to do the side underneath so that we could decorate the yard, of course. Now I did use a little spackle here to fill in the gaps between the side of the house and the front of the house, just to make it a little bit more seamless when I go to paint our house. I do like the fact that there's the boards on the front and the back like that. I think that's going to add a little bit more character to our little beach house. And this was such a fun project to do. Kind of reminded me of decorating a tier tray because there's so many fun details. For the color of the house, I'm going to mix some Caribbean blue and some ivory together to give me the perfect color of light blue that I wanted for my beach house. And I'm just going to go over, and this is when I realized, oh yeah, I completely forgot to fill those holes in the side of my house, but that's okay. I just put one coat on there, dry that real quick, and then just went in and put a little spackle in here. It's not going to fill them perfectly, but we're not going for perfect. We're going for fun and interesting with this project, and I really love how it turned out. It's so cute. Bringing a beach house to your home no matter where you live. And I just flipped it over and spackled the other side, so don't forget this side, and then I can continue painting this. I did find that the sides required probably 2 coats of paint. That raw wood really soaked in the paint. And then it's gonna all look very consistent once I paint everything, because I have, you know, the different finishes of wood and stuff like that, but it all blends in together pretty well once I paint everything with this. And we're just going to go over, I want my whole house to be this beachy blue. We're going to add some faux windows, doors, shutters, different fun things to this. I tried to add as many details to the house as I could before I attach it to the sign so that we can start decorating the yard and stuff like that. So I just went over everything here, even the top there in case you can see that, and then I went over the sides with a second coat. For the roof, I'm going to be using those little rectangular wood panels, and I kind of want them to look a little bit like more of a lighter driftwood color. I think that'll be a nice contrast against this. Now to decorate the front of the house, I didn't like the fact that you could kind of see some paint dripping down in between the individual wood panels here. So I did go in with a tiny brush and filled those in with blue as well. And then we're just going to use some paint pens and try to draw some features on here. I just did a rectangular shaped door and then a little window here in the front. I didn't want to add too many windows to the front of this house. It's not super big wide-wise. And then I went over the door with some white. I wasn't sure if I was going to leave it white or add more color to it, but I thought this would provide a great foundation to whatever color I want to add to make it look a little bit different than the blue house. I do end up painting it a different color because I thought the white was just a little too plain. Then for the window panels, I'm just going to do some diagonal lines to make it look a little bit like cartoon glass. On the side of the house, I have room for more than one window, so I'm just going to draw 2 windows on each side. They don't have to be perfect, with some framing in between. Just add some fun details to the side of the house as well. And we want to make them look like glass as well. So I did the diagonal lines on these as well on both sides. And I don't decorate the back of the house too much, but I did want it to have a window back there as well. So I'm just going to draw one on like right here. You could also do a door back there if you wanted to. Now for the door, I kind of want it to be like more of a mint green color. So the first thing I did was go over it with a paint pen. This is kind of the color that I was looking for. But I didn't really like the fact that it looked kind of streaky when I went over it with my paint pen like this. So I do switch it up to some Dollar Tree paint that I found the other day that is like a fresh mint metallic. And it was really close to the color that I wanted, so it would kind of make the door look a little bit glossy too, so I went over it with that as well to get the look I was going for. Then I kind of need to outline the frame with some white, and I do that with a paint pen. I'm going to add matching shutters to the beach house in that color as well. And then I'm just going to do like the traditional panels like you would see on a door, squares, rectangles, a little doorknob. Nothing fancy, just to give it some more details, but I'm glad that I didn't leave it just plain white. For the shutters for that front window, I'm just going to use a popsicle stick, kind of a medium size. I thought this was a perfect size. And I'm going to paint it again with that metallic mint paint I got at the Dollar Tree. I probably should have painted it white first because I did have to do quite a few coats to cover that raw wood as opposed to what I needed for the door. And popsicle sticks are great to work with because they're easy to cut down just with regular scissors. I'm just going to cut down 2 rectangular shapes here for our shutters. It's going to add a little 3D effect here to the front of the house. And I just attached those with hot glue. I do want to add a few more details, but I'm going to go ahead and glue them onto the side of my window first. And then using my white paint pen, I'm going to make little lines going across to make them look like shutters and outline them as well to bring a little definition. I'm not going to do any shutters on the side of the house. I didn't really leave enough room for those, but you could if you wanted to. And then for a giant ornament at the top of the house, I'm just going to use a seashell that I have from my collection from the beach. For the sides of the house, I'm going to decorate them with starfish. These are some little resin starfish. I think I got these on Temu. I'll try to see if I can find the link. I got those a while ago. And I hot glued one on each side of the house. For the front door, for the wreath, I want to do a little life buoy. So I'm using one of the Fairy Garden life buoys from the Dollar Tree for a cute little wreath for the top. And now we can start working on the roof. These are just raw wood. So the first thing I'm going to do is mix some Antique Wax by Waverly with water to do a very light stain. So more water than Antique Wax by Waverly for sure. And I go over all 4 panels like this and wipe off the excess. I wiped it off there with a baby wipe. They were still a little bit too dark for what I wanted, so I distressed mine with some ivory like this to kind of make it look like a very light driftwood finish, which is what I was going for. I wiped off the excess paint and blended it there with a baby wipe. And then the frame of my sign that I'm going to use to display everything is a little darker than I would like. So I'm just going to distress that with that same paint mixture that I had mixed up there, the ivory onto the wood, and it's going to give it kind of that light driftwood feel as well. Super easy way to lighten that up. And then I want to stack these on top of each other. I don't know what I was thinking. When I first went in, I thought I wanted this one to be on the bottom, but then I remembered I wanted that one to be on top. So I'm going to do a panel here at the bottom that overlaps the sides by a little bit to give that roof pitch. And then I'm going to do the second one on top, gluing this one to the other board because there's a little bit of an opening there between the house because I had to stagger them a little bit like that to cover the entire size because I didn't have anything that was the right size to cover the whole roof on one side, and I think it kind of gives it kind of a shingled appearance. I did the same thing here on the other side, doing the bottom board first, and then I used a little hot glue here on top to try to glue the top of the house together to make it look a little bit more cohesive. I didn't really like the staining here on the front of the house the way it looked, so I just brightened that up with a paint pen just to brighten up some of that stain that might have seeped over. And now it's time to start putting this together. I was trying to decide how I wanted it. I think I want it sideways like this with my house in the middle. That'll give me plenty of area for yard to decorate. So the first thing I'm going to do is just hot glue my house down by putting some hot glue here on the larger house panels and glue that here, backing it all the way up to my frame. And you can use any kind of frame or base for the bottom of this, any kind of wood. I like the fact that there's sides because we're going to be adding sand. For a tropical plant, I just took a Dollar Tree succulent that I had taken out of the pot and glued that on, making it stand up in the yard. I want to try to hot glue things down before I add the sand. It's going to make it easier. And for this one, I'm making my own palm tree using some of these tropical leaves from the Dollar Tree and one of their little wood stem pieces for the tree. And it actually turned out pretty cute. The leaves were a little bit bent, so I just gave them a quick iron with my heat gun, and I'm going to put my little palm tree here in front, just because I haven't really found a palm tree at the Dollar Tree that is kind of ready to go. I DIY'd my own. Every beach house needs a pink flamingo in the front yard, so we're going to use some of the beach-themed fairy garden items to decorate the yard. I have a great little beach chair with a little pink hat in it. I thought that would look cute sitting here on the side of our little beach house. Just attaching everything with hot glue so it'll stay in place. A little beach sign pointing to the beach that's going to be behind our house. And then I thought a pelican would be really cute. So I have this little bird, and I thought it would be cute to boost it up. So I'm going to take just a Dollar Tree wood stem and glue that on there to make it look like he's perched on that in the yard. And then these are like the seashells that have bases on them from the fairy garden section. I'm just going to add some of those to the side yard. A couple of shells on the side to fill up a lot of space over there, and maybe a sandcastle here in the front yard. Now let's go in and start attaching some sand. I'm going to go in with school glue and a paintbrush and just smooth out the school glue. School glue works great for helping to glue sand in place. I'm going to make my sand pretty thick, so it's not all going to be glued down, but a lot of it will, I think. And then I'm just using the tan sand from the Dollar Tree and sprinkling that all over my glue to give me a sandy yard. No grass in this yard. We're at the beach. Now for the front door, I didn't really like that the life buoy was red. It didn't really match my pink and blue aesthetic, so I just went in with a paint pen and painted that pink. I decided I wanted another one of those shells in the front yard to balance this out, so I added that. I thought a little welcome mat would be really cute. I'm going to make mine out of a wood domino from the Dollar Tree. These are pretty much the same as popsicle sticks. You can just cut them down to size. I've been having trouble finding those for a while, but I have a stash of those. And then I wanted to look like a core doormat, so I thought burlap would be fun. I have some of this burlap left over from the Shore Living line when I wanted this one because I could put like a little starfish on there. I thought that'd be cute. You could use whatever you have or just burlap and paint on there with a paint pen. That'd be really easy to do. I just Mod Podge that on until it is nice and stuck there to that. And then I'm going to cut down the burlap once it is dry. And we have a little welcome mat. I have just enough room there. I probably should have attached this before the sand, but I just kind of put the sand to the side and hot glue this down to the wooden base. Now, I did want to add a little surfboard. I had some room over on the side of the house. I'm going to use one of the giant popsicle sticks from Walmart and make a little surfboard that is going to be up against the house that's kind of buried in the sand a little bit. It did need a pointier tip though, but these popsicle sticks are really easy to cut. And if they split, you can always go in and redo it. They're really inexpensive. I went over mine with a couple of coats of white paint. I want my surfboard to be white and pink. I thought that would go with my color scheme. So I just take a pink paint pen and I just go down the center of my surfboard with one big stripe. I think this is going to be perfect over here on the side of the house and fill in that area a little bit. So I just attached that with hot glue. Now I did want it to look like there was like a fishing net hanging on one corner of the house. And I got some of this mesh ribbon, I think on Amazon. I will post a link to this. It is great for a fishing net material, I think. And you get a big roll of it. I'm just going to cut down a piece of that. And I'm going to cut off the sides to make it have more of that net feel. And you can kind of rearrange it, pull it to the side, make it look like a fishing net. And I want to hang it here on the corner just to provide a little bit more detail on this side of the house. And I love the look of a fishing net. I drape it down kind of in a diagonal pattern and just tack it here at the bottom. I think that's the final touch in our little beach house. Let me show you how it turned out. I think it's really cute. A fun decor piece for my coastal decor. A fun decor piece for summer for sure. You could use this all the time. You could use it for a party. I think it's really fun. You could even use this outdoors for decoration. I think it was really fun. It was so much fun to make. It kind of reminded me a little bit of doing a fairy garden. But let me give you a little tour of our Crafty beach house. Here is the side yard with our DIY palm tree. We have our pelican, surfboard, starfish, seashells, the little welcome mat in front of the front door, the life buoy, pink flamingo, the shell in the front of the house, the fishing net, sandcastle, beach chair. We got some plants back there. Now for the next DIY, I wanted to see if I could make a rope bowl. I've been seeing people sell these and I'm like, you know what? I could totally make that with supplies from the Dollar Tree, and it would be a cute way to show off some seashells or some beach finds. So I'm just going to take the Dollar Tree rope. This is the longer, skinnier rope from the Dollar Tree. And I'm using this one just because it's going to be longer. I won't have as many seams. And I'm going to start here just on my silicone mat just to get us started, because what I want to do is spiral this, hot gluing it to itself. I'm using a metal mixing bowl I had as a template. Because the hot glue won't stick well to that, it'll be easy to remove. And again, I don't want to glue it to the bowl. I just want to use that as the shape of my bowl to help me get the shape I'm going for. So I just work my way around, adding hot glue to the rope that I had just added and then gluing on another layer. I want the bottom of my bowl to be flat like this. So until I get to the edges here of the bowl, it's pretty flat, but now I can start making it take this shape. I just spin it as I go. And one reason I do that, I want to make sure that I'm not hot gluing it down, and then I don't have to turn the whole bowl either to get this shape, but still bending it around the shape as I go, as I'm slightly raising the sides each time with the hot glue. Now I did end up using 2 packages because I wanted this to be a pretty large rope bowl. And the seams on the white nautical rope are a little bit harder to hide sometimes. So I'm actually going to use some burlap to make some little tags to cover that. So I'm going to start my second package right about here. If you stopped at this point, you would have a small tray instead of more of a bowl, which is what I was going for. So I'm going to start and stop here. Now, I know a lot of people, when they make the rope bowls, take string or yarn and tie off the seams. I'm going to see if I can get kind of the same look just using some burlap. So I went ahead and attached my second piece like this. Now, normally I wouldn't put the tag here, but you know what? I'm going to do a burlap tag at the top. So I thought a burlap tag here would be fine too. And I can just make sure that both of my tags are on the same side of my rope bowl. And so I just cut off a little piece of burlap from the burlap roll from the Dollar Tree and made a little tag to go around this, sealing that all together. And I think it adds a fun little touch to the rope bowl. And we can continue on. I want to use pretty much the entire second package of the Dollar Tree rope. And I'm putting the glue kind of on the bottom side of the rope because I know I'm trying to get that more vertical shape now. And using the metal bowl worked really well. It provided me a great shape. I didn't really damage the bowl at all. I was able to remove any hot glue on there once it set up a little bit. And it gave me the perfect shape I wanted for this bowl. It's kind of a floppy bowl being made out of rope, but I kind of like that. Adds a lot of character to it. So I'm going to keep going around until I use pretty much this entire package of rope. I do want to make sure that my seams are on the same side. Since I'm going to have the little burlap tag, I think I have enough to go around one more time here. And then end it right here, almost the perfect length. I trimmed it down a tiny bit so they would be symmetrical, and then I'm going to make that little burlap tag here. I found this was easier than the sewing method for sure to cover your ends on your rope bowl, and burlap is usually pretty readily accessible. You could also use the faux burlap from the faux burlap bags from the Dollar Tree. That would work well too and be easy to work with. And I just wrap that around, providing a little tag there. And you can see our rope bowl is pretty big. I love it. I'm going to melt some of the hot glue that might have seeped through and just clean the whole thing up with my heat gun a little bit. As you can see, it's kind of a floppy bowl. It's nice and big though. Be a great centerpiece or accent piece. I'm going to fill it up with some Spanish moss here from the Dollar Tree. And I'm going to fill this up with seashells and beach treasures, whatever I can find around my house. This is one of the wood beads from the Shore Living line last year. I told you guys I still have a stash of those, so I'm going to sprinkle in some Shore Living items here every now and then. And this was a fun starfish. I do want this to have a little color though, so I'm going to paint mine Caribbean blue just for fun. As you can see, it's like a resin starfish that's got a lot of texture on there, so I think painting it that like turquoise color will be pretty. I'm going to add some driftwood. This is not actual driftwood from the beach. This is just driftwood vase filler that I have from Target. Different pieces, a lot smaller scale. I just kind of scatter those around my rope basket. And then we're going to add seashells. Again, I have tons of seashells from the last time I went to Sanibel. And when you go to Sanibel, you'll find you get all the same type of seashells a lot of times. So I have a lot of these that are similar. So I'm going to try to mix them up a little bit here with finds that I have from the beach. And just pile it in here. Again, anytime I can display my beach treasures, I'm happy with that. Add some more colorful ones as well. We can add some of the Dollar Tree sea glass. This stuff is so pretty. When we went to Grand Turk and the Turks and Caicos for Christmas, I was actually able to find real sea glass on their beaches, which was a really fun find. I want the starfish to be on top, kind of the star of the show, and this is how I styled my rope basket using supplies from the Dollar Tree for the rope basket and treasures from the beach, mixed in with a few other finds as well. This is how it turned out. It's a nice size bowl, and I think it's a really fun beach decor piece using the rope from the Dollar Tree. You guys asked for some more rope projects, so I definitely wanted to include a rope bowl DIY. For this one, I wanted to make a really beautiful sea turtle art piece. And so what I'm gonna do is use one of these little wood signs from the Dollar Tree. I'm gonna switch out the beads on mine. They have wood beads on this little wood circle sign. And you guys were asking me to source some beach stuff from other locations, so I've been looking. It's been hard, but I did find a few things on Temu. I will try to post links to whatever I found, but for this one, I'm going to switch out these little wood beads on here with some sea turtle wood beads I thought would be really cute since we're going to be making a sea turtle piece. This is what they look like. They're white with little blue sea turtles all over. Very cute. I did find some stuff from Temu. I found some stuff from Amazon, and there's also another website that I found for like wood cutouts that I'll try to post the links to everything in the description of today's video. The sea turtles do go a certain direction, so I had 3 go one way, 3 go another way, and then I just reattached the existing hanger to the sign itself. I thought that was really cute, especially because we're going to have some blue on this DIY. I wanted to try to make a sea turtle out of seashells and some of that crushed glass from the Dollar Tree. So I am just going to stencil it out. I made the stencil of a sea turtle silhouette. I will include a link to the free printable in the description of today's video if you'd like to recreate. I tried not to waste as much ink as I could by making it just an outline like this. And I'm just going to cut the sea turtle out just to use it as a template for how I want it to be shaped. There's a couple ways you could do this. You could just cut it out like this and sketch it out. You could actually cut it out like a stencil and kind of work in between it. I don't know which way would really be easier. For this one, I decided to go ahead and cut the flippers, the head, and everything off here because I thought that because I'm going to do the sections differently, like I'm going to do the seashells for the turtle shell. But then I was like, oh, you know, it might not fit properly on here, so I still need to have it kind of lined up. I probably could have left it attached because what I'm going to do is just sketch this on here just to give me an outline. And I used a pencil on this. You might want to use chalk or something like that because I did have a little bit of issues with erasing the pencil and making it not noticeable. But the first thing I did was just sketch out the turtle shell. These are the seashells I'm going to use. I'm going to use a combination of these seashells I found on Amazon. You get this giant jar of them. And then some of the tiny shells from Dollar Tree, the little jar shells. Haven't been able to find those at Dollar Tree lately. So I've been getting these large jars on Amazon, and it's really just as cheap because you get a lot of them. And I have that linked in my Amazon shop under beach essentials maybe. And we are going to glue this on for the shell. I'm using tacky glue from Dollar Tree. It works great for making shell encrusted projects like this. It's super strong and it dries clear. And I just painted that on exactly where I drew out my outline for the turtle shell. And I don't really care what color it is or what style of shell it is. I just want it to be small. So there's a few larger ones in the jar. So I was just trying to pick them out just because they were a little bit bigger than I would like. But I just want the entire shell to be shell encrusted. That makes sense, right? And then I want to do the rest of the turtle with the crushed glass from the Dollar Tree. And your girl has sleeves on. It is not because I am cold here in Florida. I am covered from head to toe with poison ivy. I was mulching my yard to try to avoid fire ants because we keep getting fire ants next to our house. So I decided to mulch the entire perimeter of the house. And somehow the mulching gave me poison ivy. Like, I don't even think there was any poison ivy there. I must have had something contaminated on the mulch itself. I don't know, but it has been almost a week and I am dying. So if you have any fantastic remedies, I think I've probably tried everything for poison ivy. Please let me know in the comments below because your girl is suffering. But I got this encrusted. I started the drying process a little bit just to kind of see what was attached and what wasn't. A couple of them might have been double stacked. I used a little spray adhesive from the Dollar Tree too. It's not super necessary, but I thought it might help this along with sticking together. And then I decided to go in and try to erase the pencil. The problems that I had was it was really kind of hard to get in there without messing the shells up right at this point, right? And I was really having trouble getting in there at all. So, what I decided to do was just go around the perimeter with a little bit more of that tacky glue and add tiny shells around the perimeter to kind of cover up the pencil marks because I didn't want them to be seen. And I really thought that the glue over the pencil was really going to kind of seal that on there. And I didn't want that part to be visible. I thought I was going to be able to erase that a little bit better than I could, but I was able to fix it by using this method. And I also have exciting news. I have my son home from college. I went and moved him home yesterday. I got to help him clean his apartment that he was sharing with another guy and move him home. I'm so glad to have him home for the summer. He does have a lot of summer school this year for college, but he is doing fantastic. Now for the head and all of the sea turtle flippers, and there was even a little tail that I had sketched out earlier. It was part of the shell, I think. I just sketched these out with pencil as well, and I'm going to cover these with crushed glass. Now Dollar Tree does have these in a few different colors. I know that they have green, blue, and kind of a pinkish color. I think green or blue would work well for this. And I want to cover all of these parts with the crushed glass. I thought this would be a fun idea because it, looks like sea glass, but like a lot smaller. So it would work better for something more the scale of a project. So again, I just use the tacky glue. It works great for shells. So I thought it would work great for crushed glass too. And I just painted that on there and spread out my blue crushed glass. I absolutely love how this turned out. Anytime I can work with like sea glass, shells, different materials like that to make something, some of my favorite DIYs, just really cool. I do make sure to put down a nice healthy coat of tacky glue. I might have put too much on that first flipper though, so I'm just going to spread that out a little bit there. I want it to dry quickly and clear, but I do want it to be secure. I just don't want to waste any glue if I don't need to. And even though it goes on white, you're thinking it's going to dry white. It really doesn't. It dries crystal clear. It might give you a glossy finish. So I try to cover as much of it as I can with the stones or the shells when I'm working with them. And I just work my way around here. He has 4 flippers and a little tiny tail. I love sea turtles. They're one of my favorite creatures. They nest on the beaches here where I live by the thousands. And so it's always such a fun treat. I've got to go see them lay eggs with some sea turtle groups a couple of times now on the beach in the middle of the night. And it's so fun. I've even seen a leatherback hatchling hatch out of its nest one night at the beach and head to the ocean. So that was really cool as well. They're just such beautiful creatures. Very cool. We even got to swim with one. And where was that? That was in The Virgin Islands, you got into a pool with the sea turtle, and it was a really cool experience. I always love seeing them in the wild as well. This is how my sea glass and seashell sea turtle turned out. I think it's really cute and a fun way we can make a beach DIY without using shore living products from the Dollar Tree. Isn't that so pretty? I love how it turned out. And I think it's a perfect size for that size sign. For the next DIY, I wanted to see if we could make a beach house out of one of these house signs from the Dollar Tree. Just a regular house. I did consider removing the chimney on it, but then I thought back, you know what? When we lived over on the island, we did actually have a fireplace with the chimney, so I'm going to leave it on. And I am going to paint it. I mixed Caribbean blue with white together to give me this soft beachy blue. I love that the white is distressed with wood, and I do want some of that to come through, so I don't do a very thick coat of the acrylic paint, but I do want to make sure everything is covered with the blue paint. And then I went over it with a paper towel to kind of wipe some of it off, so maybe you could see some of that distressing come through and you can still see that wood grain. I also want to have two signs hanging below it. I'm going to use these little wood planks from the Dollar Tree to make that and some Dollar Tree burlap. I thought I could cover these signs with the burlap roll from the Dollar Tree. You could use any kind of burlap or even the faux burlap bags are great for crafting. This is almost the same width as these plank signs. It's actually a little bit wider, which works. So I'm just going to cut out two pieces of these the same length as the planks. And I thought I could have little dangling signs hanging underneath the beach house that say beach house. So that is my plan for that one. And I love using burlap with coastal DIYs. I think it turns out really cute. To attach that, and while my paint's drying on my beach house, I'm just going to go ahead and Mod Podge the wood planks. This is probably, out of all the wood sizes they have at the Dollar Tree that come in those packages, this is probably the one I use the most. It's just a great size for crafting. And I put a nice thick coat of Mod Podge down because I really want to be able to grab that burlap and make sure it's strong enough to hold that on there, because we're going to be adding some letters to that as well. These are the letters I'm using. I've been having trouble finding these wood letters at the Dollar Trees. Mine only have numbers. What about yours? What have you found at your store? So I've been out of vowels for a while, so I'm going to make this work. I'm going to turn my F's into E's, and I'm going to turn my Q into an O, and we're going to make this work. Because I like the wood letters so much more than the metal letters, and they're a whole different size. So what I do is I cut the part off the L there to make the F and E. So we're going to make that work. And I'm just going to go ahead and put these on some painter's tape. It's just going to make them easier to paint. For the O, I had to cut the little parts off the Q here. I'm just going to use a razor blade so I don't mess this up too much. It's a little bit thinner than some of the other letters, but I think it'll work. And then, of course, I have to make another E here too. I must use a lot of vowels on these because I'm totally out of vowels. Once I get those on the painter's tape and I have everything cut out to size, I'm just going to go ahead and paint everything with some white acrylic paint. I thought that would really pop against the burlap. And I'm just using a makeup sponge to paint. I find that works really good with the small, thinner signs from the Dollar Tree and letters and stuff like this. I used to be able to buy the little makeup sponges like this from the Dollar Tree, but I've been having trouble finding those as well. So I've been having to get those on Amazon, but they are super cheap. So we have all of our letters. I did go over them with a couple of coats of white to really make them pop, and they're going to fit on here. It's a little tight, especially with beach. I tried to center it by doing the center letter in the center, but I did find that, the letters are all different shapes. I did kind of go off the side here a little bit, but not too bad. I think that will work. And it's already glued down, so we're going to have to go with it. I decided to lay out all my letters for house first, though, so it wouldn't happen down here. And again, I'm just going to glue everything on with hot glue, and then we're going to start decorating our beach house. In my last coastal DIY video, I did a beach house, like a 3D version of a beach house, but this is going to be like a wall hanging of a beach house. I thought that'd be fun. For the window, I'm going to use one of these little chalkboard. They're on the little clothespins from the Dollar Tree. I thought that that'd be a nice size rectangle for a window. I do want to distress it, make it look beachy, so I do go over it with some white, distressing it, and just wiping off any excess with a baby wipe to go with a distressed feel. I did want a little bit different color and fabric for the roof, so I'm using that burlap roll to cut out the roof. My original plan was just to use the seams, but as you can see, the seam on this side is like not sewn well at all. So I'm just actually just going to cut out little strips of burlap here that I think are going to be wide enough to cover the roof. And it's just going to give you like a little fun touch of burlap, but it's also going to provide the needed color change you need here for the roof. I'm going to leave the chimney blue. We are going to add a fun coastal touch to it as well. But I wanted to decorate it just like a simple little beach house with all kinds of like fun ideas. I did find some other items at Temu, some beach shapes since there's no shore living this year. And I will show those to you as well. And I am just going to reattach my hanger now. I can just go straight through that burlap. That's the original hanger that came with the house sign. And I don't really want my window to be black. I want it to be blue, like glass, but I do want it to be a little bit darker than the house. So I left it black like that and then went over it with the same like Caribbean blue color that we used for the house itself, and hoping that that'll make a little bit darker shade of blue. For the beach door, I'm just going to make it out of popsicle sticks. I didn't really have anything that was the right size, so you know what? We're going to piece together 4 popsicle sticks. These are kind of the medium size ones, I guess. And I'm just cutting them with my scissors, straight line here at the top. And I can put them together over here on this side to do a door on our beach house. All I have to do is glue them down. I'm going to go ahead and glue them first before I cut them, just so I make sure that I cut them all the same length and there's like none that are kind of jagged. So I glued them on first and then went in with some heavy duty scissors there and just trimmed those down to size. Another coat of blue here on my window. It was a little darker than I wanted, and I can add the little window over here on the side. It's not a really big house. You could do 2 stories and have the window at the top if you wanted. I thought about doing that. And then I'm also going to make some window shutters with the popsicle sticks as well. I'm just going to cut them down to size into little shutters. They're the perfect width, the same popsicle sticks that we used for the door. Then I wanted there to be like a shell on the top of the house. These are from Temu. These little cutouts are really cute. They're very similar to the ones that they've had at the Dollar Tree and also the ones that they've had in the Crafter Square. So you could really use whatever you have. You could even use a real shell on there. I do want to paint the door white as well. So I go in there with my makeup sponge and white paint and do a couple of coats of white on that too. And also painting the shutters for the windows white. I wanted to stick with like that beachy blue and white and burlap color scheme for that, which works so great for coastal. I have a lot of that in my home decor. And if you're wondering, I do have every room in my house, except for my son's room, is done in coastal. But his bathroom is. And I just draw a window on with my white paint pen, really easy, and then hot glue a shutter on each side. The shutters are a little plain, but I am going to add some details to that as well. Just touching up my window frame, making it a little bit wider here. And I'm just going to use a blue Sharpie. I have like a light blue Sharpie from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to draw on some panels there for our shutters. And then go back over that, distressing that with a little bit of white, just to make that look coastal farmhouse distressed. I'm going to add the shell here to the top with a little bit of hot glue. And I thought there needed to be a little bit of definition, maybe a door frame around the door. So I just kind of sketched that onto the popsicle sticks with that same blue Sharpie, distressing that as well. Very cute. I think the door is the right scale. It does need a doorknob, so I'm going to use a little wood bead from the Dollar Tree. I'm just going to fill in the hole with some spackle and glue this on right where your doorknob would be. It does kind of dent in a little bit where I filled it in with spackle, but I kind of like that. It almost makes it look like a lock on the doorknob. And then I painted that white acrylic as well to kind of blend in with our little beach door. It's looking really cute. I didn't want the window to look like glass, so I added a little white paint at diagonal angle. For the chimney, I wanted to use some of this netting material. I got this mesh ribbon at Amazon. I have this linked in my Amazon shop down below. And I'm going to use that for the chimney. I think that's going to be a fun little touch just to make it look a little bit different, but add a coastal element to it as well. I think it makes great fishnet. You can also use the mesh ribbon from the Dollar Tree. I wanted something coastal to decorate my door, something to size. These are the little crafter square shapes of an anchor. They are tie-dye, and I want mine to look a little bit more coastal farmhouse. So I just flipped it over and actually distressed the anchor with white paint here on the back to kind of make it look like distressed wood. And it's a perfect scale, I think, to decorate my little beach door. I'm just going to glue that on here. Half the fun in your beach house is decorating it. I thought it needed more coastal touches, and I found these cutouts in a smaller size from Temu as well. I wanted white ones, so I'm going to do fish and starfish across to really add the coastal beach feel to this, but really stay with those neutral colors, the white and the blues. And I just attached those in a row across the top of our beach house, and now I think we can start putting this together. I'm going to flip everything over, and I'm just going to use twine and hot glue to attach the little signs that are going to dangle down below. I love a dangly sign like this. I think it's really fun. My wood on both projects I don't think is thick enough for my staple gun, which is why I'm using hot glue, but it seems strong enough. I just cut out 2 pieces of twine and glued my signs together, and then I'm going to glue that, trying to make sure that I hang that level when I attach that to the back of my house sign. And there it is, our little beach house sign. I think it turned out really cute. What do you guys think about this one? Another fun beach DIY using supplies from the Dollar Tree. And I got a few items there from Temu as well. Isn't that so cute? I hope Dollar Tree starts carrying the letters again so I don't have to make my own. But it says beach house here at the bottom. I think that was a really fun project. It was really fun to put together. For the next DIY, I wanted to make a mermaid tail, or I guess you could even say a whale tail, out of some Dollar Tree signs. I liked these smaller plank signs from the Dollar Tree. These are the smaller ones out of the 2. I'm going to do 3 across, and then to put them all together, I'm going to use a larger sign. This is one of the wood square signs from the Dollar Tree. It's not ideal because I want this to be rectangular and it is square, so I'm going to have to cut it down. But I thought it would be cheaper than using more of the wood panels on the back because, look how much more wood you got there for $1.25. I do want it to look like a wood panel sign with thick wood boards like that with a little bit of gap in between them. What I did is I flipped them so the openings, the little holes are on opposite ends to make them look like wood planks. And I'm going to glue this on. I'm going to start on one side of the wood square and just glue these on. Be careful. I accidentally dropped mine. Got hot glue all over my first board. I had to go in and clean that up, which does affect how it stains. But I'm going for a old driftwood feel to this, so I actually added the project by adding a little imperfection to it. So I glued those on, just reversing where the openings of the holes were. I'm going to go to my saw, cut that down close to the panel. My saw did kind of chew up this sign a little bit, but again, I wanted it to look old and distressed, so I think it's going to work well. I did have to make a hanger here for the back because I noticed when I added the boards to it that the twine kind of got in the way from the original hanger. So I just took some twine and knotted on both sides. It's now thick enough that I can use my staple gun. I'm just going to make sure that I put it a couple of inches from each side so it will hang evenly with some twine here and burning off any fuzzies. I want this to look like old driftwood. The best thing that I have found for driftwood is to mix some ivory paint with some Antique Wax by Waverly and then distress it with Antique Wax by Waverly. It gives you a great driftwood feel. The perfect shade of, I guess, tan, and I'm going to go over all of the boards. Layering these wood signs from the Dollar Trees together made the sign a lot thicker and more substantial, which is what I'm going to need because we're going to be adding a lot of elements to this that are going to be kind of heavy. And I really wanted this to be a flat board sign, no bowing or anything like that. And this worked really well. So if you didn't want to do the square sign and you didn't want to do the cutting on the original sign, you could always find a rectangular sign to attach your boards to as well. I distressed it with the Antique Wax by Waverly to give me a wood grain. And this is the tail we're going to do. I think it looks more like a mermaid tail, but it could also be considered a whale tail, I guess. What I want to do is I want to do a really cool shell encrusted mermaid tail coming out of the ocean. And in the ocean, I want to make out of sea glass from the Dollar Tree. Now, I didn't like the pencil lines last time, so I'm going to do one of the chalk markers from the Dollar Tree. This time, try some chalk. This actually worked a lot better. But I designed this printable of this mermaid tail. I will include a link to this printable in the description of today's video if you want to recreate and you need a little stencil shape. I think it helps when you're trying to form something like this that you really want it to look like a certain shape. I just sketched that out with the chalk like that, and I'm going to decorate the inside of it. For this one, I wanted a larger shell and I wanted interesting shells. So these are some of the little shelled shells and jars from the Dollar Tree. I am going to use different ones of those. And then they also have just like the regular shell shapes like that from the Dollar Tree. But I was trying to do like medium and small ones, but I want them all to be different colors and to look really interesting. And we're gonna just start hot gluing these on in the shape of the mermaid tail. I did have to go into my stash like for like shells that I found at the beach to find more colors and options because I don't want it to be just 3 different shells. I want it to look really interesting. And again, just be really unique. I want all of my shells to be very unique. So I'm just gonna start by hot gluing these on. I don't want them to be too big, so I did have to go through my stash and try to find some smaller ones. But again, if they had a little bit of color, I really like that. I'm just putting it together almost kind of like a puzzle and piecing it together. I want all the shells to be unique. If the shell is similar, I don't want it to be necessarily next to each other. And I'm just hot gluing everything on with my hot glue gun. I think that that's going to be plenty strong and a fun way to glue shells. I was wondering if any of you guys had any recommendations for your favorite way to glue shells. I, go back and forth with the tacky glue and the hot glue, but I didn't know if there was another kind of glue that I might be missing out on. So you'll have to let me know in the comments below if you have a favorite glue for your seashell crafting. As you can see, I did work in some smaller seashells from time to time, anytime I had a gap, and because I really wanted to keep that and retain that shape of the mermaid tail. Again, I'm trying to go on the inside of the chalk too, so that I will be able to go back and erase that and you won't be able to see any of it. But I filled in my entire tail with seashells. And as you can see, lots of different colors and variety. Whatever you have in your seashell stash will work. You might have to go to the beach first. To wipe off the chalk, I just wet a paintbrush and went around to clean that off. It worked really well and removed all of that, no pencil lines. So the chalk method, definitely a great way to sketch out your silhouette. But isn't this looking so pretty already? I love the variety of the seashells. Now, the sea glass from the Dollar Tree has changed a bit from what it used to be. It is now these nice flat pieces, and you can get the ones like this that don't have the royal blue in there. Now, you could use the royal blue because we are making the ocean, but I had more the teal, the greens, the whites, but I think we can make it work. And I want to put it all over, so I just start like laying them out, kind of like puzzle pieces. I don't want too much of the clear, but I do want to use the clear, and I want to fill it up like this is going to be the water in the ocean. And then I'm just going to start hot gluing these on. I laid them out kind of a rough sketch. I do want them to be a little bit closer together, so I just glue them as tightly together, not quite touching, but I'm leaving the gaps pretty minimal in between and trying to fill this in just to make it look a little bit fuller. And this is going to represent the ocean. And I love crafting with sea glass. I think it's so fun. And I was trying to decide if I wanted to do a second layer or if I wanted to make any kind of bigger waves. I didn't really choose to do waves, but I did do a second layer just kind of here and there with the pieces just to make it look a little bit more full and add a little bit of variety to it. This is how it turned out, a little mermaid tail made out of seashells in a sea glass ocean. Didn't that turn out so pretty? A lot of those shells are from the Dollar Tree, and a lot of them are just from my pocket at the beach. And then the sea glass there is from the Dollar Tree on those Dollar Tree wood panels that really turned out really well. I'm glad that I decided to construct it that way. For the next DIY, I'm using a glass bottle from the Dollar Tree and these ocean napkins that I got on Temu. I will try to post a link to these as well. It's a very abstract scene of an ocean on a 2-ply napkin. I am going to cut it in half and attempt to Mod Podge this on. I use a little bit of painter's tape to separate my layers. This was a very cheap napkin, so I did have a little bit of difficulty with the Mod Podge process. I'm just using a Dollar Tree bottle, and I found a great floral from the Dollar Tree that I think looks really coastal. I just cut my napkin in half, and I'm trying to see like how much I need to cover the whole thing. I probably will overlap it a little bit. Now, I had to do this project a couple of times because Mod Podge and glass and thin napkins don't always work together. But the good news is if you mess up, you can always wash it off and start over again. I did a very thin coat of Mod Podge all over the bottle. And I was going to try to do the iron method with my little Cricut Easy Press iron, this one, but it malfunctioned and it's no good any longer. So I'm very disappointed in Cricut. That was way too expensive to have lasted such a short amount of time. Maybe I should contact them and see if they'll give me a new one. I read online that it is a very common problem. It just beeps instead of turning on. I wadded up some saran wrap. This is the floral that I'm going to use from the Dollar Tree. I found these the other day with lots of different pampas. This one's not labeled exactly what it is. Does anybody know what this is called? I thought it looked coastal. I love the colors. It had a couple branches in there, and I thought this would be perfect for this bottle. I let the Mod Podge stick on this one. This was my successful attempt for a minute or so until it became tacky but not dry. And then I applied the napkin very carefully, just putting it on with the plastic wrap that I had bunched up. And the only place I really got any wrinkling was the back here where I overlapped it, but that's going to be the back of the bottle, so I think I can live with that. I added more Mod Podge there for the seam, and I just tried to touch it all over very carefully. I tried not to sit it down. The problems I was having with this DIY was the napkin tearing, so I was really trying to make sure that it didn't tear this time. And I'm not going to Mod Podge over the top of it because I was having such difficulty with it. I'm just going to leave it as is. I don't want to mess it up. For the top part, I'm going to cover that with twine. I just start here at the top of the Dollar Tree bottle and attach the twine, and I'm going to overlap the napkin a little bit to fill in this section. This is going to give a fun coastal touch. The twine I'm using is from Walmart there, but you could always use the twine from the Dollar Tree. This one's just a little bit thicker. And I thought that these glass bottles were the Shore Living line at Dollar Tree, but one of my stores just got them in, and they don't have Shore Living this year, so that doesn't make sense. So I think that they're just a home decor product, but they're really nice size vase. And I just cover this entire section with that twine, again, overlapping it just a little bit. That Walmart twine is a little rough. I did try to carefully burn this off, being very careful I didn't try to catch my napkin on fire there. But it made a really subtle vase. I love this napkin pattern. I think it's really pretty. And a fun way to just take a Dollar Tree bottle like that and make it an extra special vase. Isn't that so pretty? I love the gold metallic for the waves too. Very subtle but pretty. And I don't really think I have to add anything to this except for just adding this like dried out greenery. Again, I don't know what this is called, but I think it's really pretty, to the vase. And this is how it turned out. I think it is very coastal and pretty. What do you guys think about this DIY? Had a couple fails on this one. I thought about leaving it in, but I didn't want to make the video too long for you. And this is my successful attempt at Mod Podging on the glass with that beautiful napkin. I have company coming this week, and I realized I don't have my coffee bar decorated at all. So time to get it decorated, and I thought a beach theme would be perfect. Now, you've seen me remake this sign a million times. This is just a thrifted wood board sign that I got at Goodwill, and I have made it into probably 20 different themes on here, but it fits perfectly at the very top of my coffee bar hanging above my shelves. So the first thing I'm going to do is dismantle it from the Valentine's Day coffee bar I had used this for, and I just used Cricut vinyl, so I'm just peeling that off, and I removed the heart that we had attached to it. And so each time I do this, I have to try to repair it a little bit. I used a lot of tacks on that heart for decorative purposes, so I had lots of holes to patch. But basically, I just keep adding to this. This has got a few layers of paint on it, but it works really well for me. And using vinyl on it seems to be the easiest method. I've done it hand painted a lot of times with letters, but it's easier just to do the Cricut vinyl. So that's what we're going to do with this sign. I do want to make it a really pretty turquoise color though, and I didn't think I'd be able to get that color over the pink. So I just went over it with one coat of white, and just to give me a base coat, just to make it easier to cover the pink and to make it a beautiful turquoise color. This is the color I'm using. I think it's just called Turquoise by Apple Barrel, and I'm going to paint this all over. I really like the white coming through, and so I will distress it with white to give it that coastal vibe. I want this to be a coffee bar sign to kind of show off my coffee bar like it is like an actual little coffee shop. I always like to do that. And sometimes I name it like coffee company, sometimes I name it cafe. Today we're going to do a mermaid theme on this one. And I am going to do all a day at the beach kind of thing is what I was thinking for the coffee bar. I have this coffee bar in my house that I kind of put in on a little wall that I had, and I have a little armoire from Goodwill that I had thrifted and redid coastal, and then I have shelves on the wall above my coffee makers, and that is what we're going to be decorating. So I got all of this, the turquoise color. Now all we have to do is go in and distress it with white, and I want it to look very chippy and chunky. This is just like kind of the coastal farmhouse look, which I really love. And so I just went over it in one direction with white. If you get too much in an area, you can go in with a baby wipe and blend it, or you can go in with your original color. But I want to use all different colors of blue today on these DIYs for the coffee bar to really bring out all the blues that you see when you go to the beach. So I'm pretty happy with that. And what I want to do is I want to attach a mermaid to it. This I got at the Crafter Square. This is not Shore Living. This is Crafter Square Mermaid. And I want it to be a white silhouette to pop against that turquoise background. But I also wanted to have lots of detail. So let me show you what I did with this. This does have a little bump out part for the tail, and it's got like a few scales wood burned into the tail. So I just go over it with a couple of coats of white to give me a good base coat for this. And then I wanted to go in and add a lot more detail. I thought the white was really pretty, but since it's a mermaid, I thought it'd be really fun to make it shimmer. So this is like a liquid glitter that I get at Dollar General. And it's basically like a clear paint that's just filled with glitter. And I thought that would be perfect for a mermaid. Let's make her shimmer. So I just went over the white acrylic with that to really make her glitter. It's not real obnoxious. It's more kind of a subtle glow. And so I had to add a couple of coats just to be able to see it pretty well. Then once that's dry, I go in. These are the little scales that are on her tail. And I'm going in with my fine tipped hot glue gun. This is my Surebonder. It is a little bit easier to control and releases less glue. I use those for reference because we're going to fill in the entire tail with that mermaid scale to give this tail lots of texture. Also drawing the little lines here on the fin. They had 2. I added 3 to that part. And I really liked how that turned out. So I thought it would be really pretty to do that to her hair too. So we'll make it like she's looking away from us. And this is the back of the mermaid's head. So using the little curls for reference, I can kind of tell where her hair is supposed to be. And I'm kind of alternating curly, wavy, and straight lines here to try to make it look like different pieces of hair down her back. And I think that looks pretty good. Now, my hot glue is a little yellowish, so I do go over it with some more of the white acrylic just to make the little bump out parts, the texture that I added, white as well. And of course, I want to make that shimmer too. So I'm going over it again with that glitter. And that's probably my favorite way to attach glitter to something. It is no mess whatsoever. And this is all of the texture we added to that little mermaid silhouette. I think it's super cute. Now we can plan on adding it here. I cut out some Cricut vinyl using my Cricut Joy Extra. I love that thing because I don't have to use a mat with it. And I do have the SVG if you want to create this. I'll have it linked in the description of today's video. And I'm going to name my little coffee bar the Coral Cafe. So I cut out cafe with a little coral. And this is the coral part. I did have to cut them separately because I wanted to use my Joy Extra. And it's a little bit skinnier. So if you need these files individually, let me know. I can try to split them. What I had to do was when I brought it into Cricut, it was all one file. It wasn't going to fit. I had to use the contour function to like copy and paste and then deselect what I didn't want. So not ideal. If I would have used my regular Cricut, I probably wouldn't have had that problem. But I'm just using my favorite transfer paper. This is the paper roll transfer paper. I get this on Amazon. I have it linked in my shop. And for the vinyl, I'm just using Cricut vinyl. I love it. It's so easy to weed with and works really well. So I just add Coral Cafe. I really only like to add words to the top 2 lines because a lot of times I have stuff in front of it that you can't read. And that's all I really needed. I did measure this at 4 inches. I must have cut my cafe a little bit big because I did have to kind of cut it there at the very bottom. And then I'm going to add my mermaid, but I thought I had a little bit too much space over here because she's pretty skinny compared to what I normally add to my sign. So I decided to add like a big rock or something for her to be sitting on, looking out into the ocean. So I just sketched that on there, and I'm just going over the blue that we had on there with some, I think this is called Beachcombers Beige, like just a sand color. Just something very abstract. I just want a shadow, so I'm not going to have any details or anything on that. And I think that that really added to this side of the sign and balanced it out a little bit because it felt a little bit empty. Once I got it all on there, I just distressed it with white just so it would be more cohesive with the rest of the sign. And then we can add our little mermaid to our Coral Cafe sign. Looks like she's sitting on the rock looking out into the ocean. Very cute. To attach it, I'm just going to use one of the Dollar Tree thumbtacks. These are the ones that come with the nails. They're pretty long, so I think that's what will work well. I also use hot glue, but this also covers the hole here, and I don't have to worry about that. It also helps keep it on there. So I just add the brass tack, and I painted that white to blend that in with the mermaid's hair. And then I thought, a few more details down here would be cute. So I decided to add some seashells from my stash. 3 of these I think I found at the beach. One, I'm not sure where I got the shiny one. I must have gotten that somewhere that actually polishes their shells, and I don't really have time to soak these and polish them. So I thought I would try just using some spray enamel to see if we could get that shiny finish on these so it would look like the other shell that I wanted to use there, a little bit shinier. And look how much more detail it brings out in those. I don't know if I've ever tried that before, but it worked pretty well. I think 4 shells is going to be enough. I'm just going to attach them with hot glue. I don't think these will be too hard to remove when I go to remake this little sign again. But I just glue those on the rock she's sitting on there. And this is how it turned out. This is what it looks like at the top of my coffee bar, all the way up at the very top next to my trim there. Isn't she so pretty? The next idea is from the toy department at Dollar Tree. They have the little Adirondack chairs. They have like the double chair, and they also have the lounger like this. I think this one looks great for a day at the beach. I do like the fact that it's blue already, but it's obviously plastic. So I thought if I painted it, we could make it look a little bit better. So I want to try to make it look like wood. I'm going over this. I think this is called a velvet teal color. It's a darker color of blue. It's pretty similar though to what the chair already is. And I'm just going all over, letting a little bit of that blue show through because I want to distress this with different colors. It's going to make it look like wood a little bit. So I go over it with white next, and just using a chunky brush from the Dollar Tree, I'm just going to give it a very chunky distress all over. And hopefully it doesn't look as much like plastic as it did before. If you get too much on there, you can always blend it a little bit, but with plastic, you do have to worry about kind of taking your paint off. So you might want to go back in there with your original color if you distress a little too heavy anywhere. And that is what I did with this little Adirondack lounger. Perfect for a tiered tray too, but we're going to be using here at the very top of my coffee bar. And it's not very tall, which is what I was looking for the projects for the top shelf, because I don't want to block that gorgeous sign that we just made. The next item I found from Dollar Tree is a little message in a bottle. It's like kind of an ombre bluish at the bottom. It has a little message in there, super cute. I'm just going to retie mine. It looks like it had come undone. And I thought these were Shore Living, but one of my Dollar Trees just got them in, and they don't have Shore Living this year, so they must not be Shore Living. And I'm just going to add a little bit of sand in there, a couple seashells just for fun, and I want to lay it kind of on its side, but I wasn't really sure how to do that. I decided to try to make a little DIY stand using 3 of the little mini Jenga blocks from the toy aisle at Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to cut them with my miter scissors. I cut them at an angle like the most that I could go to try to make a little, almost like a ramp, so I can have one side of it be up a little bit like that, so you can see it a little bit better on the top shelf and kind of see what it is. I wasn't able to get like the angle that I really wanted, but I think this is still gonna work. I went ahead and glued the 3 together. This is also going to keep the bottle from rolling off the shelf because I want to lay it down like that. So I'm going to add some hot glue here to our stand. And the angle helped that I cut those on, but really I'm just kind of boosting up one side. So I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to kind of fix my message. And there it is, our little message in a bottle. Do people still do those? I was asking my son about that. He did not think that sounded like a good idea. And this is how it turned out, and this is how it looks on the top shelf of my beach-themed coffee bar. I love those. I've made so many different things with them. The next DIY, I designed a printable, and I will include a link in the description if you want to recreate. It is square, and it is a cup of coffee at the beach. I'm going to add that to a little Target dollar spot sign that I got on clearance. I love stocking up on those when they go on clearance at Target dollar spot because they have really tiny signs. And sometimes at Dollar Tree, I can't find a sign quite small enough. I'm just going to cut this out. I designed this square to kind of be custom fit for this. And I'm just going to cover up what was already on there. I printed the little cup of coffee out on cardstock so I don't have to worry about any of that writing coming through. And I just Mod Podged it down and then tried to trim off any excess material I have there. I can also sand it once I get it sealed on here and dried. I do go over it with a couple of coats of Mod Podge just to really seal this little sign. This would be great for a beach-themed tier tray as well for your kitchen. A little cup of coffee at the beach, kind of 2 of my favorite things. And so I got that on there and dried, and I just went over and sanded all the edges just to make sure I didn't have any paper hanging over. Very quick, very easy, and I will include a link to this free printable that I designed. But I just popped this up on the top shelf. It's great because it's not very large, but you could always resize it to whatever size sign that you want to put yours on. The next item is a ceramic starfish that I got from Dollar Tree. This has been Shore Living for the past like 3 years at my store. Again, no Shore Living this year, but you guys said to still sprinkle it in because I still have quite a stash and I know that a lot of you do too. So I'm going to use the white ceramic and show you how cool it looks when you paint it. So I went over it first with like a Caribbean blue color. And then I'm also going to distress it with some white to bring out the details of all of the little dots on the top of it. And I find that when you paint it, it gives it that matte finish texture that you would see like on a dried starfish. It just makes it look so much more real than the glossy white ceramic. So it doesn't really matter if you have the white one or the blue one, since you're going to be painting it anyway, but this is how my little beachy blue starfish turned out. And I'm just going to lean it up against that coffee bar sign that we made there for the top shelf. The top shelf is almost full, but I decided I needed something by the little Adirondack chair. It was a little bare there. So I decided to make a little beach directional arrow sign. I'm just going to do it with popsicle sticks and a little dowel from the Dollar Tree and some of their little mini Jenga blocks. So I just cut it down and then cut one end to be pointy. That's how they normally are. They're not normally like just arrows or anything like that. They're just very simple. So I just cut a straight line and then I just cut a point, and I'm going to try to make them all the same size. And I want to paint them in the coastal colors that we've been using today. So I think I've been using velvet, teal, Caribbean, blue, and turquoise. And so those are the colors that I'm going to do my little directional arrow signs. And of course, I'm going to do them with like real locations that are here around me in Florida. And of course, I'm going to have them pointing the right way, right? I have to. So first, I live in Vero Beach. So that's going to be the first one. I'm just using my fine tipped white Posca paint pen, and I'm just going to freehand it on there. Don't worry if you don't do a great job. These signs, like the directional arrow signs at the beach, are usually not painted great. I'm going to do Key West, one of my favorite spots in Florida, and maybe Miami too, just because it is that direction too, and it's a big city. That's fun. Then for the little directional arrow sign, I want to make a base. So I am going to cut one of the Jenga blocks in half, cutting a little chunk out of it to form a little window in the middle of it. So when I glue them together, there will be an opening here in the middle that I can add my dowel to, which is going to be the stand for the directional arrow. Very simple, but it's functional. I just glue that together, sandwiching the little pieces in between, and I went ahead and added my dowel already. I'm going to kind of fill up that little window with more hot glue, and then I'm going to cut it down exactly how high I wanted it. I went to my coffee bar and kind of measured, and then I'm just going to glue my little directional arrows on there. And you can get creative with some of your favorite beach spots. And I thought this was so easy to make. I am going to reinforce little signs by adding a little bit of extra hot glue on the back, and this is how it turned out. Our little custom directional arrow sign next to my little beach chair up there on the top. Everything is looking great on the top shelf. Again, the coffee bar sign takes up most of it, but I always love doing garlands, pennant banners, and stuff like that for my shelves. So I'm going to do that for both of my shelves today. For the first one, I'm going to use some of these wood beads from Shore Living. Last year was the first year that I had seen that they'd had these at Dollar Tree. And of course, unfortunately, not there this year, but I ordered cases of these because I love them. Check out how cute these sea turtles are. We're going to paint them. They're ceramic. They have a great texture. I'm going to paint mine with Caribbean blue, just using a little sponge dabber. I love painting with those. And I'm going to go over the front and the back since it's going to be kind of dangling on the shelves just in case you can see that. And I also want to bring out a lot of the detail on there. I also have all of the wood beads that they were attached to, so I might as well use those too as part of the garland and string it all on the top shelf. I think we'll have plenty of room for that. Besides the sea turtles last year, they also had these in sand dollars and seashells. I can't remember if there was a fourth one. I know I have an entire crate full of them, so I do still need to craft with them. If you want to recreate this, you could get like some wooden turtles. I know I've gotten a lot of coastal creatures off of Amazon and Temu. Or if you wanted to do a smaller version, you could do the little grow sea turtles from the toy aisle at the Dollar Tree. So I went over mine with a little sponge and some white paint there to bring out some more texture. And then I just took the wood bead garlands apart and I'm going to string it myself. It's just going to be easier than having multiple pieces of twine. I cut a piece of twine as long as I would like it for my top shelf. Then I'm going to use kind of a contrasting twine to tie them on. That way I can kind of arrange them left to right when I add them to it, but I also want to do the wood beads in between. So I'm just going to start stringing them. There was as many wood beads as there was white beads, and so I'm just going to alternate 1 to 1 and fill this up. This is going to be a really cute little garland. I'm going to do something a little bit more simple for the bottom shelf, but I always like to decorate both of them. I think it just adds another fun touch. Now, if you're doing a tier tray instead of a coffee bar, this would be great too, kind of to go around your tier and decorate that as well. I found the very center here, and I'm going to tie off my first sea turtle, adding one more shell over here so that it is still balanced. And then I find the halfway point in between this wood bead garland, and then I'm going to tie on this turtle. I always like to work with odd numbers, so like 3 or 5 when I'm doing a garland. And I'm just going to tie that off on there. It's going to be really easy to push these left to right when I'm hanging this on the shelf. And this is a lot heavier than most garlands that I do for my coffee bar. I usually just attach them with hot glue, but the little ceramic turtles are heavy. So I actually had to use some of the tacks there in my shelf to be able to hold those securely. I want to make sure that doesn't fall down and break because those turtles are so cute. And that finishes off the very top shelf there. We can move down and start decorating the shelf below it, the one that's above like my coffee makers. For the first item I want to add to it, this is one of the Rae Dunn coastal canisters. And I have a whole set of these, but this is the one that I have my coffee in. So I thought that would be perfect to go with the theme. So I'm just going to add that down there where it will be accessible, and it totally matches the day at the beach with the little shorebird on there. The next DIY we're going to make, I wanted to make a little beach sign that goes with the coffee bar theme that I can hang on the wall. I have a nail in already where I can hang a little sign, and I designed this printable. It says Crabby Before Coffee with a blue and green crab on it. Super cute. I did a blue board background, but I made it all one piece of wood to look like that so that I can do like individual little pieces of wood here, because you can see it is a slatted wood sign. Now, these signs are not totally square. I did make my printable square to make it a little bit easier if you wanted to recreate, and I will include a link to the Crabby Before Coffee printable in the description of today's video. This is me adding way too much Mod Podge, sometimes that happens, to my sign, so I'm trying to get as much extra off as I can, and then add the little Crabby Before Coffee sign to it. I wanted to do it one board like that so I could cut some slats in it. I don't know if I'll do all of them, but I thought that would make it look really cool. So I just put that on there, gave it a quick dry. I'm going to sand off any excess paper. I had it pretty much custom to size, but I kind of like the look too, because when you sand the cardstock like that, it does give it a little bit of a white border around there. It just makes it look a little bit more distressed. And we're distressing a lot of things with the coastal farmhouse theme of this coffee bar. But this is me in the morning, definitely Crabby Before Coffee. I'm just going to use my razor blade and cut some of these in here. I ended up only doing 2. You could do all 3 if you wanted. And then I used my sanding sponge to kind of sand that to really define the individual boards. And then I'm going to seal it. So I'm just going over it with more of the matte Mod Podge. This is just going to finish it, protect it, and give it a really nice finish. And originally I wanted to leave the little wood beads on there. I thought that was fun, and it corresponds well with the wood bead garland we made for the top shelf of my coffee bar, but I ended up needing to shorten that. So I ended up losing those in the end, you'll see. But I just went over it with 3 coats of the matte Mod Podge. Once it was really good and sealed, then I can distress it. I just do that with some white, making the boards look distressed and kind of everything else. It really doesn't take away from the writing because the writing is white too, but it gives the whole sign a little bit of an aged coastal look, which I really appreciate. And I think this is going to look great hanging on the coffee bar. It is a fun saying that I've seen before for beach themed coffee bars, so I wanted to see if I could make my own and original and share it with you guys to recreate. Isn't that so cute? I just hung that above that shelf there on the coffee bar. The next DIY, I'm going to be using one of the stepping stones. These have been shore living for the last couple of years. In case you have any of these in your stash, they have like seashells on them, or this one has a starfish on there. It's a little bit of a yellowish color, so I'm going to give mine a little makeover. The first thing I do is I go over that yellowish looking sand with some beachcomber beige, and I'm just sponging that on. It's just going to give it more of a sand appearance, which is what sand dollars look like when I find them a lot of times on the beach. And I'm assuming that's what this is supposed to be, a sand dollar with a starfish kind of on top of it kind of look. And so I painted with that first. I think that that color looks a lot better. Then I added a little bit of brown paint to that to make it a little bit darker, so I could go back in and sponge that on to give it kind of a two-tone appearance with the tan and the brown. Now let's make this little starfish pop. I don't really like the colors on it. I think it looks really plain. So I'm going to go over the edges with that bright turquoise color. Instead of the white, trying not to get any on the sandy looking area. And I'm going to go ahead and do that all around. I want to blend like two colors together for this starfish. I thought it would be really pretty. And that blue color really pops. So I just go around all the sides. And then I switched it up to Caribbean blue for the body of the starfish, and I just sponge that on. And it's got a great texture. The sponge does a really good job of kind of getting in there. Then I'm going to go in and use that same turquoise color to do like the lines here on the top and to distress it a little bit. So it's got two different colors of blue working together. I think it really made the starfish pretty. And I want to make this into a standing sign. I've DIY'd with these a lot. I don't really use them for stepping stones too much in my garden area because they're not real big and they tend to break outside sometimes. So I'm going to use some really strong glue because it's heavy. I use some Gorilla Glue, and then I'm also going to use some hot glue. Just trying not to mix them together so I can get a temporary start on this. And I'm using one of the metal round signs from the Dollar Tree to make this into a standing sign for our coffee bar, to raise it up, make it easier to see. And I think that's going to work really well. I think it looks really pretty painted. What do you guys think? I love the colors on that. I set in between the sign and the canister there with really good height there for exactly what I wanted. The next DIY, I'm going to show you how to take one of the bikini top shells from the Dollar Tree and make it look like a real seashell. So they have some kind of annoying holes in there for the straps. The only two I'm really concerned about are the ones at the bottom, though. I'm going to go ahead and use the top one to my advantage to make a little hanger to hang the seashell on the wall. To fill this in, I just use some duct tape here on the back to give me kind of a solid surface. And then I'm just going to use spackle. It doesn't work perfectly, especially when working with plastic. And you'll see I'll have to add more here in a little bit, but it does a pretty good job of filling it in. The first thing we're going to do is go over the entire shell with some ivory. And I'm just using the stencil sponges from the Dollar Tree to really get into that texture on the seashell. And this is a great base coat if you want to try to make it look real. And I can still see the hole, so I did go in with a little bit more of the spackle to try to fill that in a little bit better, painting those ivory again. And now I can go over it with some Antique Wax by Waverly. I want to bring out all the great detail on this. Look at this cool texture that it has. I kind of do it in a striped fashion like that, like you would see on a seashell. Working my way out, distressing that. And then I just go over it with a baby wipe to wipe off the excess. You might want to use a paper towel. I don't care if a little bit of the original white comes through. I do go in and distress it a little bit more with the ivory so it's not so dark, but you can still see all the great details by using the Antique Wax by Waverly, and kind of go back in there with that a little bit too to make it look like an aged shell. Easy peasy. Now it looks like a cute little shell we can hang on the wall. I'm just going to take some twine and I'm going to put both ends here through the hole. It's plenty large enough for both. I can knot that on the inside and make a simple hanger for this where I can hang the seashell on the wall. If you wanted to use this on a tier tray or something like that, you could always fill all three of your holes, kind of lean it up against something. It is a fun option for a giant shell using something that they currently do have at the Dollar Tree with the summer section. Isn't this so pretty? I love the details and how it fits in here with everything else we've done on this shelf. For the next beach DIY, I'm going to take one of these blue coffee cups from the Dollar Tree and try to make it into a fun little mermaid mug of coffee. I cut out some Cricut vinyl for this, and I will include the SVG for this if you want to recreate. I did this skinny font, and I'm going to have it say Mermaid Fuel. It looks like the Rae Dunn font, which I have a lot of in my kitchen, so I think this is going to be really cute. It's pretty whimsical. I'm just going to go ahead and weed that out. It can be a little tricky to work with the skinny font because it is so thin, trying to get it properly weeded. But with a little bit of patience, you can get it. And I cut this down to size exactly how big. I think about 2.5 inches is what I was aiming for. Width and height on this one, because it was about 3 inches I had to work with. And I'm just going to use my paper transfer paper that I get on Amazon and transfer my white Cricut vinyl onto it. And now it says Mermaid Fuel. I want to do like a faux cup of coffee, so I want to look like it is full. To do that, I thought the little foam cone from the Dollar Tree would work well for this to fill up the cup, and it did. I'm just going to cut off the little cone part here. First, I cut it a little bit too tall, so I need to trim it a little bit more here with my fun noodle knife, and a perfect fit. It almost actually looks like whipped cream already, but we're going to add some more so we can add some fun things to it. I found some of the little tube beads, a little keychain that has a mermaid tail on it, and I'm also going to add some seashells to the whipped cream. I want the mermaid tail to be sticking out of the whipped cream to make it look like she dove in, so I think that keychain from the Dollar Tree is going to work perfect. I'm going to use some of the Dollar Tree clock mastic for this, and I'm going to use one of Dollar Tree's little cake decorating kits. The tip won't fit on there, so if I would have had some good quality Dollar Tree spackle, I would have mixed that with white paint instead, but I was having trouble finding it at Dollar Tree, and all of mine is a little bit drier, so I'm just going to go ahead and try to make it like this. I empty most of the tube into the cake decorating bag, and I just want it to look like a whipped cream surface on a coffee. I don't want it to go super tall, so I think this is going to work, but it gives you that fun star tip design to kind of make a little swirly here on the top. Again, it does flatten out a little bit. I've noticed that versus making it with spackle, but I think it can still work. I add the little mermaid tail down into it, kind of pushing that into the styrofoam too to keep that into place. And I think these are called, what are they called? Tube beads maybe from Dollar Tree. You get like 3 different colors together. I'm going to add the blue ones for sparkly little mermaid candy sprinkles here on the whipped cream. So I just kind of individually add those all over until I get an even coating of them. They're a little bit messy to work with. And then I'm going to add some of the little tiny seashells from the Dollar Tree here. These are all the same kind. There's a couple different colors on them, so I'm going to kind of mix those up and just scatter those around too. I thought that would be a fun touch for the Mermaid Fuel, and this is how it turned out. It was really easy to make, and I was really wanting to use that mermaid tail keychain. I think it's super cute peeking out of the top like that. This is how it looks on my coffee bar on the bottom shelf. For the next item, I found this little rope beach sign at the Dollar Tree. This was Shore Living. I've seen these before, maybe in the regular aisle. I'm not sure if they have them in Crafter Square too. But as you can see, it's just beach spelled out in rope. It'd be pretty easy to recreate if you wanted to make a sign and just do rope letters on it like this. This is already attached to a wood surface that should make this stand up on its own. So I just burned off any fuzzies on mine and took the hangers off the back. I can always reuse those. I can stand that here on the front of my bottom shelf to start filling this out. But I noticed you couldn't really read my Crabby Before Coffee sign too well anymore because the beach was in front of it. So that's why I decided to shorten this. I just took the wood beads off. I'm going to use the same hanger, re-knot it, and make it shorter. Just because this sign is so cute, I want to make sure that you can read it. And you can see the before coffee part, not just the crabby part. So I just made it shorter. I'm going to rehang it, and I think that looks a lot better down here on this bottom shelf. But it's filled in really nicely. I think now we can move on to a little garland DIY for down here. Again, I cut some twine the length of my shelf, and I'm going to use some of this mermaid fabric. This is from the Shore Living line at Dollar Tree. I have a stash from the past 3 years of all these great coastal fabrics, and I thought this would be perfect since I have a mermaid at the top. It was kind of packaged and folded uneven. I went ahead and cut straight across scales to try to give me a straight line to work with. And I'm just going to do a little mini pennant banner. So all I need is a triangular shape here. And I want them all to kind of start and stop in the same place. That's one reason why I cut my scales like that. So I'm going to make sure they all kind of start down there. And I think maybe 5 of these will be enough to fill this in. Just a very easy little pennant banner. I can use that same strip that I had started here And using my triangles for reference, I do want them all to be the same size. So I'll just use one as a template here and cut the rest of these down to size. I'm not going to be sewing these or anything. I'm just going to be hot gluing these straight onto the twine. So a super easy little pendant banner. And if you have any of the coastal fabric left, this would be a fun idea if you were decorating your coffee bar or a tier tray or anything like that. So just cutting 5 of these down, this fabric was a little bit wrinkled. I do want to make sure that everything lays down properly. And I just cleaned my entire garage and craft room because I had to get ready for guests because I had to convert my craft room back into a guest room, which was a challenge. So I moved my little automatic heat press out here on my crafting station so I can use it for DIYs. And how convenient is that? I love that. It is the HTV heat press. It's an automatic heat press. I use it a lot to make shirts and stuff like that. So fun. I love that thing. And I'm going to do about 1 inch in between each one of my pendant banners. I do need a measure since you can't move them around once you attach them, but easy peasy, we're just going to hot glue them all on. And we have a very simple little pendant banner here for the bottom shelf of the coffee bar. I think it turned out really cute, and it goes great with the mermaid theme. I'm just going to attach this with a dot of hot glue on each side of my shelf here for the bottom shelf. And I love how this coffee bar has turned out. I think this is the first time I've done straight coastal on my coffee bar. You'll have to let me know. I'm pretty sure. I really can't remember. The next thing I'm going to do is add some of the Shore of Living coffee cups that I got at Dollar Tree last year and hang those on the hooks underneath that shelf that we just DIY'd. It goes great with the coastal theme and the blue colors that we use today. And I think that's the final touch for our coastal coffee bar. But before we do some more beach DIYs, let me give you a little tour from top to bottom of our beach themed coffee bar. I think it turned out so cute. What do you guys think about these DIYs? I tried to use a little mixture of Dollar Tree stuff that they have now and some Shore Living stuff that you might have in your stash. And this is how it turned out. I'm really pleased with it. I think it all goes really well together. And it's really fun with the little mermaid there at the very top. Let me show you how everything looks together here. I think it's really coastal and cute, perfect for summertime. Now it's time for the final reveal. I hope you enjoyed these 22 Beach Dollar Tree DIYs. Please let me know which one was your favorite down in the comments below. And don't forget to check out my second channel, Crafty Little Beach, for individual Dollar Tree DIYs. Enjoy!
For better days to come and carry us like wind in our sails. Hold on tight, I can smell the shore, it's right in front of us if we just hold on tight. This vision that I saw is getting closer every dawn. We are dreamers of the shore. Seven years now on this boat, and we all know for better days to come and carry us like wind in our sails. Hold on tight, I can smell the shore, it's right in front of us if we just hold on tight. This vision that I saw is getting closer every dawn. We are dreamers of the shore.
Thank you so much for making it all the way to the end of today's Coastal Crafting Marathon. I'd also like to give a huge thank you to my YouTube members. Thank you to Melinda Elizabeth, Jamie Job, Susan Edmonds, Tracy Knight, Janae Farrington, Pamelia Wren, Donna Schreiner, I Am Mojo Jojo, Marin Christensen, Adrian Brolt, Debbie Middleton, Donna Tanner, Kim Rogers, Maria Cruz Pagan, Powell Puppy Life, and Renee Albanese. I really appreciate your support. It really helps a smaller channel like mine. If you would like to become a Crafty Beach member, all you have to do is hit the join button next to today's video. You're going to get early ad-free access to my content here on YouTube, a badge next to your name when you comment down below, and a shout out in every video. I would also love to see what you've been crafting. Be sure to share your DIYs with us on our private Facebook group, always linked in the description of my videos. We would love to see you over on Facebook. Would you like more coastal crafting inspiration? I've got you covered. I have tons of videos on my channel, including these two. So take a look at one of these and let's keep crafting on.
7 years now on this boat, and